Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Adorn, and welcome to the health segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm a family practice physician here in Hudson, Wisconsin, where the St. Croix River is on the rise. Today we have a psychological topic. We're going to talk about bullying. It's been in the news quite a bit lately, and there's been some unhappy consequences associated with it. And to help us discuss this, we have Lisa Sedlak from Hudson Counseling Services, and she's a counselor there. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
First of all, why don't you give us a little background how you got into counseling?
Okay. I studied my undergraduate program at UW-Stout in Human Development and Family Studies, and then I went and worked for a couple of years and came back and got my master's degree at UW-Stout in Marriage and Family Therapy. And then I just spent a couple of years doing in-home family therapy and then moved on to private practice. And just recently joined Hudson Counseling Services about a month and a half ago.
Okay.
And it's one of the best things I ever could have done.
So you are new.
I am very new there.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you enjoy the counseling then?
I love counseling. I knew at age 17 that I wanted to be a therapist.
I thought I wanted to go that way, and I did in my own way. Because about 30% of what I do in my practice is counseling, or more than that. All right. So today's topic, we're going to talk about bullying. And I guess we should just lay out a definition. What is bullying?
Bullying is essentially just exerting power over someone else, making someone else feel badly about themselves, trying to alienate someone in a way. And there are a lot of different ways that people can do that, but it's just really a way of exerting power over someone and making them feel smaller or worse. Yeah.
Okay. And is it kind of like harassment too? Is that kind of?
It's really hard to differentiate between the two. They're so very similar, and I think that more often with children it's called bullying, and with adults it's called harassment.
Harassment.
Very similar.
Okay. So what different types of bullying do you see? I mean, you work with families.
Yeah, I work with families. I work with a lot of adolescents. I get a lot of referrals, kids probably school age, age 5 through, teen years. I do a lot of work with as well. And you see a lot of bullying, verbal, you're fat, you're stupid, just, name calling, that sort of thing. There's the physical, the, pushing each other and things like that. And those tend to be more common with boys, is the verbal and physical. With girls, it tends to be more verbal, emotional, that type of thing, and alienating, isolating.
Isolating.
Tends to be a big thing with girls as well.
I always wondered about that with all the social media, and I was reading once that just by isolating someone, that's a form of bullying.
Isn't that sad?
And I never thought of it that way. All right. Well, why do people do that?
Sometimes people have seen it happen in their home, whether it be parents or siblings. Sometimes will.
So like a learned behavior.
Sometimes it is a learned behavior, and sometimes it is trying to get attention, or trying to feel better and stronger and bigger themselves, and making somebody else feel smaller and worse. There are a number of different reasons for it, and it's.
Does it come natural to people though? And you say, well, some maybe learn, but it's almost kind of a natural thing to do. I hate to say that.
There probably is some aspect of it that is natural, of kind of the animal instinct coming out.
Yeah.
Wanting to get your way, wanting to get something, wanting and just
that
grasping and grabbing for
kind
it.
of dominating type of thing. Yep. Was that Adlerian type of behavior? Going back to my psych days there. Okay. So it could be learned, it could be natural, but in terms of Freudian type of things, we have to almost consciously stop ourselves from doing it. It's like stealing. Stealing is a natural type of thing. You want something, you just grab it, but then you learn it's socially inappropriate, and you kind of try to control that. Okay, so that's kind of how I look at it. All right, so we also see with the kids and then adults, and that's mostly in like workplace.
It is, it really is. And I'm amazed when I hear stories about adults doing things like this. And I just keep thinking, you know, didn't we outgrow this, or didn't we learn something different in middle school? You know, don't we have different skills to communicate with each other and to get what we want or need? But it does still happen with adults. I was just talking to a friend on Sunday who was almost in tears talking about a workplace situation. And she's like, you know,
Yep.
I think they're trying to push me out of my position.
Yep.
And, you know, so for her that isolation is, or the bullying is isolation. And they're really kind of trying to push her out of her position because she's really good at it and they're intimidated by her.
And what's interesting, what I see is I see it at the lower level factory worker level, but I also see it at the higher educational level.
Yeah,
and it's that
across the
same
board.
kind of isolating people, putting them down,
Right.
Not including them. Like,
Right.
you know, there's a meeting that pertains to this person and they're not even invited to the meeting.
Right.
That type of thing is going on.
Exactly.
And I've seen lots of devastated people. Just terrible consequences. And so what is the consequences of bullying, you know, psychologically for the person being bullied?
You know, it really varies by the person. The people that I've seen, it's a lot of anxiety, depression, feeling I'm not good enough. Oftentimes it stops them from doing that next thing in their life of, you know, they might want something more, better, different, and it stops them because they think I'm not good enough, I can't do
The
it.
esteem issue.
Yeah, yep. And it's one of those things that I think they know, mentally they know that the things that they're hearing aren't true, but somehow in their heart they take it on and they believe it, and there's just not that meshing of the head and the heart with it. And so it really can stop people from moving forward in life and accomplishing some of the things that they're meant to do.
Almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, or
It
they
is.
say that I am not good, I'm useless, nobody,
Right.
they're always putting me down, and then it turns out that they start believing it,
Right.
and then it keeps them from pushing on.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of other consequences that you see psychologically.
Worst case scenario, you know, people becoming suicidal as a result, or homicidal.
And that's the scary part.
It really is.
You know, and what you say is that they may not have a realistic perception of the situation,
Right.
and yet they feel so useless and so worthless that they would do something like that. And that's what we've run into. We've seen some of that lately.
Yeah, people get so desperate to stop it, not knowing how, and, you know, not having tools, not having skills, or not having the support system to help stop it, they'll turn to really drastic things, such as, you know, hurting themselves or other people.
Right. And I've seen a couple of cases that just come to mind. One's more of a blue-collar type of worker where he was harassed at work. He was a little different and people, once they see that you're a little different, they seem to maybe harass and bully you more.
Yeah, that's one of the factors to
And
isolate.
because he was different, he just got more and more anxious and just more and more decompensated.
Right.
And became disabled because of it. So you see that type of, they just can't work anymore.
Right.
So you talk about not moving forward, they actually move backwards.
Right.
And then a blue collar case, no, a white collar case, excuse me. This person was never had depression, anxiety, never treated before, and was just a basket case. Like couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus.
Right.
You know, just a full-blown case of depression.
Well, and I think they get so busy trying to put up walls to protect themselves, you know, from what's to come next, that you're just, you know, constantly just, you know, wondering where is it coming from, and it really does get you worked up, anxious, panic attacks, you know, all those sorts of things, and it can,
And it can get to the point where you're so anxious that something that may be meaningless, you take the wrong way as some kind of insult, or so once again, perceptions can be distorted under those anxious circumstances.
Exactly.
All right. How do we teach people not to harass or bully people? How do we get people to stop doing this?
I think it's confronting the issue. If you see it happening, to step in and say, you know, say something, say, wow, you know, what's going on here? You know, can I help? You know, things like that.
You're saying like an outside person to step in?
Yeah,
Okay.
and you know, whether it be kids on the playground seeing somebody else get bullied, to step in with that and try to intervene, because people aren't going to keep doing it unless they can get away with it.
Yeah.
You know, and I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she talks about stuff that happens on the playground sometimes, and you know, she'll once in a while step in and just be like, no, you don't get to do that, and you know, really
good
step
for
in. And
her.
I'm lucky to have a really bold little girl, but
Mhm.
some kids aren't, and you know, even adults sometimes too, that just kind of see things going on and kind of just, you know, shy away from it or pretend they're not seeing it. I think
Or
it's
they
about,
join in with it because
Yeah.
it's somebody who's being put down, and you can get in on the power side.
right.
And it's almost like that group or gang mentality type
It
of
is.
thing.
It is. And a lot of that, I think, is fed by some of the things that are on TV these days. The reality TV shows that, you know, you're not good enough, you get voted off
Oh.
this week. That,
Okay.
you know, there's a big piece of that that I think is really feeding people's minds right now, too, that people don't think about.
Well, those type of shows have social isolation, don't they?
They do,
Interesting.
in a horrible way.
Interesting. And how have schools tried to intervene from
Mm-hmm.
like the teacher's point of view, or principals, or what have they done?
Well, I know that the Somerset School District, there's an elementary counselor there that has been there for years, and she's fabulous. And she's been doing a program with the kids for years, talking about bullying and how to deal with it if somebody's bullying you, and how to stop, you know, bullying and things like that. And so I think a number of schools have been on board working with this for years, and some, it seems like it's kind of a new concept to, and not that it's a new concept that it's not been happening, but it's a new concept to try to be proactive about it,
right.
rather than wait until kids show up in your office because there's been bullying happening. So I think there are a lot of really good written programs out there that can be used these days too, that are helpful.
Okay. What about the home? How can, in the home, you can talk about this and learn how to respond? I mean, do parents have a role in this?
They sure should. Yeah, I mean, they should have a really big role in this. And sitting down and having meals together as a family is so important, and talking to kids, just offering up the opportunity to have conversations and find out what's going on, and be able to kind of guide your kids with some of that stuff. Some kids don't do great sitting face-to-face talking, so sometimes it's when you're picking them up from soccer and you're driving in the car and you're, you know, side by side and they're not looking at you. Sometimes for kids it's easier to talk in that situation, but it's really about having conversations. And some families really have a hard time getting started on those conversations. One of the tricks that I use in therapy to help with that is called boasts and bummers, and it's just to sit down and have them talk about what are, you know, one or two bummers that have happened in your day today, and what are a couple of things that you'd want to boast about in the day. And I tend to really push for them to focus more on the boast, more than the positive stuff. But I think it's a really great way to get families talking and get an idea of what's going on. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in playgrounds at school that kids don't come home and talk about.
Yeah, I remember my daughter, if she'll bring something up, I've learned when she was in high school just to drop everything. I mean, not even go to work. I mean, just say, I'm going to be late. Because when an important issue that comes up, I think it's important to listen and have, you know, be supportive.
Right.
And I remember one time she came concerned about someone who was doing self-destructive behaviors, and this was a friend of hers, and she was just distraught, and it's just drop everything.
Yep.
And I guess it's important for parents to say, you know, how was your day today?
Right.
Well, you know, little Johnny got some gum in his hair. And you say, well, how did he get that? Well, Billy put it in there.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, well, you think that was a good thing to do? You know, it's just to discuss
It is.
that type of stuff.
Right. Yep. And sometimes too, you know, being open to other people's kids talking to you. You know, sometimes kids aren't that comfortable talking to their own parents, or, you know, things like that, but to have that open environment in your home where other kids could tell you things as well. Or if your kids tell you things about other kids and you're not so sure the other parents know, to make sure to inform them. You know, my daughter came home from school 2 weeks ago probably talking about a bullying situation that happened on the playground. And the friend that it involved doesn't talk very much. She's just a very quiet, closed down little girl. And, you know, I made sure that the mom knew what was going on just so that she could kind of bring up and broach that conversation, because it's so important to protect our kids and make sure that they know how to handle those situations when they come up.
Yeah, it's important to know that they have somebody who's going to listen to them.
Exactly.
Because if everybody's running around doing their own things, you know, it's like if you just don't sit down at dinner and just talk about these things, they don't get out, and there has to be that kind of good communication. It sounds like the school has to, you know, work on this and say this is not okay. It sounds like it's at home. So this is where the prevention comes in.
Right.
What if your kid comes home and says, Johnny's picking on me? How do you approach that as a parent?
I think as a parent, it's really important to get all the information, you know. And as I was, you know, preparing for this, I was looking up some different research. And being a family therapist, I always look at the system.
Okay.
And so it's not just, you know, Johnny's picking on me. Okay, what is the interaction between you and Johnny? You know, are you guys enemies? Does he seem to think he has power over you? How do you react when he does it? And really, first, just gather all the information. Let the school know what's going on.
Okay.
Gather information from the school, and probably try to get a meeting together with the school. You know, your child, you as parents, and the other child and their parents, and try to come up with some type of resolution in a collaborative way, so that everybody knows what's going on.
Right, right. But what do you tell your kid though before you can get all this stuff? How do you deal with this on the playground? How do they respond when Johnny is picking on them? To Johnny.
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
So your kid comes home and he says, "Oh, Johnny's been picking on me. He's been tripping me. He's been pulling my hair," that type of thing. And then you say, "Well, we'll meet with your teacher. I'll call his parents or whatever intervention." But how do you tell your child to deal with that? Walk away, confront them. How do you respond to somebody who's bullying you at the time?
Right. The less power you give a bully, the better it will be. They tend to, if they don't see that they're getting a reaction out of you, they'll lose interest more quickly. So it is just, if you can, walk away. Or just stand there and look at them. Or, you know, sometimes if you can kind of use humor, depending on, you know, if your kid is a great,
I've seen that
sense
before.
of humor.
It kind of deactivates the situation.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think, you know, crying or getting mad and reacting or those sorts of things is what the person's looking for. And so that reinforces the behavior, and that's kind of that whole system again.
So even if you get angry, it's okay. So they say, I'm affecting you because you're angry. You don't like this.
Exactly.
So you don't stand up to him and punch him in the nose?
No. As tempting as that could be, no. Yeah, you know, I worked with an adolescent boy for a while that felt like everybody was bullying him, including his teachers. And he was highly reactive. I mean, I think he probably was fun to pick on because he would just explode. And really working with him on maintain yourself, stay grounded, stay calm, breathe, walk away if you can, shut a door, and then react if you absolutely have to. But I think that he was giving somebody a lot of pleasure in his highly
Just
reactive
reacting.
State of being. And that reinforced it over and over and over again. And then I think, you know, in that situation, the bullying went back and forth between he and another individual.
Okay, so they're picking back and
Yeah,
forth.
I'm going to get even with you
Who
now.
can one-up you?
Yep,
okay.
exactly.
All right, good. Well, anything else that we might have missed on this topic? Anything that you looked up, or we kind of talked about what it is, where it happens, how to intervene or try to prevent this type of thing. I guess the main thing is that this is prevalent. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It really affects people.
It does, in horrible ways.
In horrible ways.
And it affects the bully as well as the person being bullied.
How so?
It just, people who tend to bully tend to themselves have some esteem issues and have some social interaction issues and some struggles, and it's going to, you know, prevent them from being successful as well.
You know, that's kind of interesting you brought that up. You talk about the boss who alienates the workers or is being overly demanding.
Right.
He's actually hurt himself, because if this goes to a court type situation,
Right.
He could be opened up to discrimination type things,
Exactly.
or harassment type
Right.
things. So it could come back to bite you. That's a
It
good
really
point.
can. Yeah, yep.
Good point.
And I think one of the really important things to recap in talking about bullying, it's a lifelong thing. Research says it starts in elementary school. It probably hits its peak between 6th and 8th grade. It continues through high school, but not as intensely. So 6th to 8th grade are typically the worst years for it. And I wonder if it's starting to get a little bit younger. But 6 to 8 are the worst, and it continues on through adulthood, people picking on one another at work. And so it's something that if, as a parent, you're helping your kid deal with it, it's really important to teach them those coping skills now, because it could continue throughout life. They may have this problem at 40 and 50 years old in the workplace.
That's amazing,
It's exhausting to think about.
Once a bully, always a bully, it seems, and so that's a little scary.
Right. And I think that people, there are less and less bullies kind of the older you get, I think,
I think it eases off
Right.
as people realize what's socially appropriate and what isn't. And
Right.
maybe that's why you see it a lot more in kids, because the kids don't have those abilities to kind of look and see what they're doing and stop it and check it. It's
Right.
part of maturity, really.
Yeah, the impulse control and the empathy are things that grow as we age. And so, that I think is why. And think about, those 6th to 8th grade years, that's kind of where the hormones are raging too, and so that they have less maybe control over themselves even during that phase also. So that, probably plays into it.
Well, I think it's interesting about the middle school, because they're such squirrely social beings, and yet they don't really have that maturity
Right.
to see how they're hurting others.
Right.
And people can get really hurt, and to the point where they commit suicide.
Right. But it seems the people who are really out there and really want to die are 17 and up, from what I've been seeing.
From my learning that goes way back, there's certain age groups that you worry. Certainly, there's the elderly age group, but then they kept talking about the rate of suicides going up in teenagers. Not that it was as high as other age groups,
Right.
but it was going up, and that's really concerning, because they're just not adjusting.
Right.
And if you have harassment, bullying, it makes it even tougher. Well, good. Well, thanks for being on the show, Lisa.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And it was good to discuss bullying and how serious it is, and
Right.
we need to take it serious, because there are some serious consequences.
Dire consequences, yeah.
Well, thank you for watching the show. I'm Steve Adorn.